News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow.
Karen will have the latest on progress toward an Iran deal in a moment, but we begin this morning with politics in this country. Voters headed to the polls for primary elections in 5 states. The race to watch is in Michigan, where a hard-fought Senate race could signal the direction of the Democratic Party. With 94% of votes counted, NBC News is projecting progressive Abdul El-Sayed will defeat establishment-backed Congresswoman Haley Stevens 48.7 to 47.3%. Now, the Associated Press has yet to call this race, and El-Sayed told his supporters last night he knew it was going to be tight.
We all knew they were going to spend their money. We didn't know they were going to spend $70 million of their money. We didn't know that they were going to outspend us $11 to $1. And yet we're still standing.
Now, if Abdul El-Sayed's lead holds, it would be the biggest win in a progressive wave for Democrats that started in New York and stretched as far as Colorado. The winner in Michigan will face former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers in a state that President Trump carried in 2 of the last 3 elections.
Well, Nathan, Democrats are also focusing in on Virginia and their quest to take control of the House in November. Voters there went with establishment candidates in 2 districts that the party hopes to flip in November. In the 1st district, Richmond-era prosecutor Shannon Taylor won the Democratic primary with 53% of the vote. She'll face longtime Republican incumbent Rob Whitman. And in the military-heavy 2nd district, it'll be a rematch between a Democratic former Congresswoman Elaine Luria and the Republican who ousted her in 2022, Jen Kiggins. Luria won her primary with 80% of the vote. Republicans also held a Senate primary in Virginia, and Army veteran Bert Mizusawa won that race with 51% of the vote. He'll face Democrat Mark Warner in November.
And Karen, it was a primary election night as well in Kansas, Missouri, and Washington State. Checking some of the key races in those states. Democrat Marie Gluesenkamp Perez held off a progressive challenge in Washington's 3rd district with 39% of the vote. She goes on to face Republican John Braun in November. In Missouri, Democratic Congressman Wesley Bell held off a challenge from the progressive he unseated 2 years ago, Cori Bush, by a vote of 59 to 37%. And Kansas voters rejected a Republican-backed constitutional amendment that would have required direct elections of state Supreme Court justices. The vote there was 61% against to 39% in favor.
Now let's get to the latest developments in the Middle East, Nathan. The prospect of an interim deal focused on the Strait of Hormuz is gaining traction this morning. Qatar says a proposal had been drafted, and both American and Iranian officials sounded hopeful about reopening the crucial waterway. President Trump spoke with reporters last night in Los Angeles.
I think it'd be very smart to make a deal. We'll see what happens. They had a very good day. The negotiations were good.
And we get more on the negotiations from Bloomberg Middle East reporter Abir Abu Omar.
We could see a deal coming about in the next day or so, today, even as imminent as today, suggesting some sort of opening to the Strait of Hormuz to get a trickle of movement through it. Now, Qatar, which has been mediating this between the U.S. and Iran, said that a draft language was put in place for both parties to review. Nothing is finalized yet. President Trump saying earlier that Iranians were talking to him, that they were happy to talk, that they called him and asked to talk about the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. We also heard from Marco Rubio, Scott Bessent about a deal that could be imminent about the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz.
And that's Bloomberg Middle East reporter Abir Abu Omar, who says a 60-day agreement on shipping through the strait is being prepared. And Axios is reporting no tolls or fees would be charged during the 60-day period.
Well, Karen, we've been watching oil fall over the last few days on optimism over a deal, but crude is higher this morning. That's after a spokesperson for the Houthi militants said the group would escalate attacks on vessels from Saudi Arabia in the northern Red Sea. Checking prices now, Brent crude is up 1.2%, trading above $80 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate's at around $76, a gain there of about 0.5%. Meanwhile, American Petroleum Institute CEO and President Mike Summers says traffic through the strait will need to increase for gas prices in this country to drop.
Unfortunately, we're still not getting enough product through the Strait of Hormuz. Even at the highest ends, they're saying that we're getting only about 7 million barrels of oil through the Strait of Hormuz at this point. Because of new pipeline capacity, you only need to get that level up to about 11 million barrels a day through the Strait because of a lot of that product now flowing through pipelines.
American Petroleum Institute CEO Mike Summers spoke there on Bloomberg's Balance of Power. You can get the full conversation on the Bloomberg Video Hub at Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app.
And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Karen Moscow.
I'm Nathan Hager, and this is Bloomberg.